Our very first guest has started a healthcare company that has arguably tested more men for prostate cancer than anywhere else on the planet. I'd like to welcome Evan Miller, PhD, founder and CEO of Gameday Men's Health.
DocPod presents Health with Dr. Hal.
And I really just wanted to start with your origin story. To start at the beginning, what is Gameday Men's Health?
Yeah, well, thanks, Dr. Hal. This is super exciting. Just quickly say Gameday is what it is because of a lot of the work you do every day. And, in terms of chief medical officers for a brand like Gameday, there's so many docs out there, right, who would love to be in that role, but there was really only one doctor on earth, in my opinion, who could pull it off and do it the way you do it. I don't know how you keep up with all of the constant questions from over our 400 clinicians and 350 medical directors. Somehow you do it. I'm sure your thumbs are sore from texting. Maybe you figured out how AI can just answer all your texts at this point, but
Well, it's like you and I talked about this weekend when I was like, you know what, I'm just going to download everything I've ever responded on all of the emails and Slack and everything else and try to build an agent that's sort of like myself. But then you lose that personal touch too. At least this way we can have an FAQ because it's the same questions over and over, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, really, the origin of Gameday was my own personal journey, honestly. I was 35, kind of, to say this story a lot, but I looked in the mirror and something was off, right? I always took care of myself. I was an athlete growing up. And every guy has this experience when they get older where they kind of look in the mirror and they're like, dude, I just don't feel good. Am I not sleeping well? What's going on in my life? Am I depressed? All those questions came through my mind. My background's in psychology, as you know. So my first inclination was I'm probably going through something here, right? Maybe I'm depressed. Maybe there's just something that's not quite right with me. And so I kind of looked around and I'm like, maybe I need therapy, right? My original idea for Gameday, and I tell this to everybody, was to do men's kind of group therapy in this man cave setting. And I thought, I don't think anybody's going to show up for that. I don't think guys are raising their hand wanting to do group therapy, but it's certainly impactful. Dug into the research more, and testosterone replacement just kept popping up over and over and over. And I thought, maybe there's something here. Why don't I get my levels tested? And so I went to my doctor at the time, my primary care doc, and I said, hey, while I'm here for my physical, let's do my labs and let's just check my testosterone level. And he said, testosterone level? You're fine. You're good. Maybe when you're 50 or 60, we can look at that. But right now, it's not an option. And I kind of begged, please, can I please know what my levels are? And he finally conceded. And sure enough, I got my labs back and my levels were 237, which for those of you out there who don't know, it's, the T of an old man, right? And here I'm always been fit. I've always been active. I'm a dad, high pressure job, all the things. And I thought, how's that possible? Right. And so that's when the light bulb moment went off for me was there's something to this TRT thing. I thought, how do I pull this off? Guys hate going to the doctor. Last thing we want to do. Certainly hate giving blood and hate getting shots. So I thought it's got to be as comfortable and as seamless an experience as humanly possible. You got to make it almost like they're hanging out. Make it feel like a lounge or a man cave or a sports bar or a golf simulator, right? Something like that. So guys can come and hang out. And that's what I did. There was really no data in terms of, hey, where should I locate my office? Where should I do this? I just so happened to be living in Carlsbad, California at the time and opened the first location. And I tell this story a lot, but day one, I thought I totally screwed it up. I'm like, I had all this time and energy to figure out what I wanted to do next in my career. And I created a model where guys have to come and give blood and then get shots. Nice, Evan, right? But I couldn't have been more wrong, right? I couldn't have been more wrong. And, from day one, it just took off. And so that was the first office, opened up a few more throughout SoCal. And then in 2023, I thought, how do I grow this thing? How do I grow this thing and really help every guy throughout the country feel his best? And how do I do it fast? Speed is kind of a core, mantra we have at Gameday. We work really fast. Our franchisees work really fast. Our process is really fast. We do things quickly for guys because guys don't want to waste time. And so I thought, let's make it simple. Let's make it a 3-step process. Let's make it feel like a man cave. And off we went. And here we are today with 430 locations open nationwide and in North America, or all in Canada too.
It's wild. And no, it's absolutely incredible when I look back to 2023 when I joined and then where we are today. I mean, it's been an absolute rocket ship. And it's when somebody asks you to jump on board a rocket ship, you don't ask what seat. You just get
Yeah,
on. And
you
that's
get on.
literally what it feels like. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's been
no,
like that. I mean, as you know, it's the rocket ship has just kept going up from day one.
if you stretch it out, because the day to day is where, that's where you get a lot of self-doubt, right? So lots of entrepreneurs have great ideas. Most of them don't start because of self-doubt. And you're a PhD, you're not an MD. What gave you the courage to build a healthcare company?
Um, for me at the time, honestly, it was a burn the boat to take the island kind of opportunity. At the time, I had a newborn son. I was in between my last company and what I wanted to do next. I know I didn't want to go back into kind of corporate healthcare. I wanted to start something up myself. So it had to work, And so it wasn't more like a courage question for me. It was like, how do I make sure my rent is paid at the time? We had one car at the time. And in the early days of Gameday in Carlsbad, 2018, I would take an Uber from my little apartment into the office. And I would tell the Uber driver, hey, pull over, a couple blocks ahead of the office. Cause I didn't want my patients to see I didn't have a car. Right. So that was my mentality. It wasn't like I'm brave and I need to be courageous. It was, hey, I have a newborn son. I need to provide for him, for my family, and this thing has to work. And so I was the receptionist, and I was the receptionist for 2 years in Gameday Carlsbad. And it was me getting up at 4:30 a.m., making sure the office was stocked with fruit snacks and, bubbly water. And then, crap, the bathroom's backed up. We always have patients come in at 8 a.m. and blow up the bathroom, and I would plunge it right before, the next guy would come in. It was a startup. So that's what it was about for me.
I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that having your son. How much did that change you from being the guy that, okay, yeah, I want to get out there, make a ton of money for myself, make a success for myself, get famous, et cetera, et cetera. Once you have a child, those things change. That mindset changes, and you start to realize this isn't about you anymore. This is about providing for that person that's completely reliant on you, and that's a responsibility that was given to you, and you have to take it
Yeah.
seriously. And that's
Yeah.
that
It was
dad
that,
life is just
when you're a dad, new dad, especially your firstborn, you have this extra layer, like you hit it of it's got to work. It's there's no option to fail here. Um, and I carry that with me even to today. There were many times I'm like this. I don't know, man. This doesn't look like it might work. The first month we barely did a couple grand in revenue, right? And then in the next month we maybe did 5 grand, and then the next month after that it was like, oh, we did 8 grand. And I remember telling my wife at the time, hey, I don't know if this is really going to work for us. Let's identify all the furniture in the house that we should sell, and so let's sell the couch. We don't need, that extra fridge. And so we did. Right. And I was, luckily the beauty of the Gameday model is it's a membership and it's recurring revenue. So time is your best friend. And I tell this to all my franchisees today, and you do as well, that, hey guys, time is your best friend with this model. If you just focus on the guy who walks in the door and treat him like a brother, you're going to create a huge membership base, and that'll help you sleep well at night.
those guys that are walking in, they remind me of myself before game day. They really do. They're guys who are not going to talk about their problems. They come in, they're struggling, whether it's weight gain, whether it's erectile dysfunction, performance issues at work that translate into performance issues at home.
Mhm.
These guys, why do you think they were afraid to talk about their problems?
There's certainly a stigma around low T, and it was early days in 2018, even 2019, where the men's clinics out there, part of the reason I started Gameday was because those existing clinics didn't speak to me. It was like, I don't want to go there. It looks sketchy. It was in like a plastic surgeon's office. And, the branding was like this 85-year-old guy on the yacht, super shredded with like an 18-year-old girlfriend. I'm like, what in the world is that?
CD.
You know what I mean? It was creepy. So, it was redefining the model and making it something that would resonate with guys. And so that was, I think, how we've done so well is we've made it normal, right? As chief medical officer, 30, 40, sometimes 50% of guys who walk in your door, they're going to have lower testosterone levels. So it's not a matter of like, shame or like, why me? It's a matter of like, okay, well, the clock's ticking and eventually it's my turn. and then you just normalize it, because once you start on one of our programs, specifically testosterone replacement, it works fairly quickly usually, right? And so guys feel better fast. And then they go, oh my gosh, I can't imagine not, being on testosterone replacement. It's totally changed my life, not only physically, but like I'm a better husband. I'm a better dad, right? I'm more present on the weekends, even after a really stressful work week. I have energy to go and do the things I want to do. And so when you really own that piece of it, it's like, this is my lifestyle now.
That's the one thing I tell people all the time. I'm like, if you're performing well at home, you're untouchable outside, right? If your testosterone levels are therapeutic enough that you have enough confidence with your wife, with your you're playing with your children, and then outside nothing is you're untouchable, and that shows up in how you perform at work. So a ton of these guys who come in and they're at their lowest point, and then you see them 6 months later and they're different guys. They're completely changed, and we've had wives walk in and thank us because of what we've done for their husbands and their marriages. And it's a mission that just feels incredible to take somebody who's like, something's off. This isn't the guy I was. This isn't who I want to be for my family and my life. And at younger ages than that's normal. Testosterone does start to decline at 30, 40 years old, and then but we're just seeing an acceleration. Talk about that a little bit. Why do you think there is in us American males? Why are we seeing such a decline in testosterone levels?
Yeah, I mean, you know this better than I do, but certainly lifestyle, right? A lot of us are behind a computer all day. We're less active than previous generations by a long shot. Certainly diet, right? The things we're eating. We always talk about with our franchisees and our patients, stay around the outside of the grocery store. Don't go in those inner aisles because, that's going to add up and certainly deplete your testosterone levels. It's just so easy now to, hey, I need a quick bite. Let's just go through the drive-through, or let's just, have a bag of chips or eat something that, is not great for you. And then the third one is we really, really focus on a game day of sleep. So for guys, especially if your sleep starts going downhill, it's like a cascade effect on your hormone levels. A couple nights of bad sleep, no energy, endocrine system dips, and then there's this endless cycle. And you got to be up the next day, be performing, work hard, and then oh, by the way, come home and be super dad.
Yeah.
So all these things, come together, and it's like no wonder, right? I saw this stat the other day that guys who were kind of in that 40 to 60 age bracket were like the most active dads in history, right? Previous generations were, you go home or you go to work and then you come home and then it's kind of everything's more or less, you hang out with kids for 30 minutes and then everything, that's for the women to figure out. Well, our generations now are like, no, I want to prioritize being a dad. And I want to be super hands-on from early days, changing diapers, holding baby, all the way through, coaching every game to going to every practice. So we're doing it all, and we're doing it by choice because we love being dads. But if your hormone levels are low, it's literally just pushing through the day to get it done. You know that. You have a fairly young son who kicked your ass.
You and I have talked about that being a dad, the drop off and the pickup is like, that's our time.
Yeah.
That's something I have always appreciated about you when I talk to you about, hey, I need 9 o'clock and I need 3 o'clock. And you were like, listen, I get that because that's my thing too. And luckily we have, the school 7 minutes away. So it's not like a ton of time, but at least we get that. And I think the kids are going to remember that for sure. That's more important than anything. It's the single greatest joy of our lives, I think, being dads. And you see it day to day. And that's something that, I've always looked at you in that sense like a mentor because you have 2 boys already. And, the times where I'm like, man, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And I've reached out to you and you're like, look, I've been through there. I've been there. It gets better and it continues to get better. And there's times where I call you like a brother rather than, your chief medical officer. And I'm like, I need support here.
The other day it was, hey, Amir, blew through another diaper and it exploded all over the wall, Yeah. While you were doing a Zoom call.
Yeah.
What it is.
I got to go deal with that now. Afterwards. No, there's something special about being a dad nowadays. There is an awakening for sure, I think, in guys nowadays that understand that that's more important. And that's something that, is super special. I wanted to pivot a little bit. Guys at Gameday, we treat things that men don't want to say out loud, right? Including sexual performance. What do you think what do you want guys to know about or to understand about finally walking in for that conversation, that first experience?
Yeah, I mean, we say it, there's no shame in your game. The hardest thing a guy can do at game day is open the door handle into that office and take the first step in the door. And if you can get over that mental hurdle, right, of like, man, because there's like a still like a I'm less than feeling walking in, and like, man, especially for the guys who struggle with sexual performance issues, they're feeling certainly less than, and a lot of shame, and usually the relationship is not super strong with their wife or girlfriend. And so there's an element of just take that first step through the door, and then we got your back from here on out. We have the cool part about Game Day is we have like at least 30% of our patient base across North America are first responders, firefighters, police, guys who you'd look on the surface and go, damn, that guy's tough, right? I'm not messing with him. Those are our guys, right? And they've taken that leap, and it's changed their life. We have early days in Carlsbad, we had a guy who was active duty, had seen multiple deployments, pretty serious combat. And he said, Game Day saved my life, Evan. And I said, awesome. Yeah, that's so cool, man. And he was like, no, time out. He's like, it saved my life. Hear me out. He goes, the day before my consult at Game Day, I was going to end my life. I had nothing left. I'd done all the group therapy. I was on all the meds with my psychiatrist, and nothing was working. My marriage was in shambles. No one wants to talk to me. I'm angry. I think it's my time. And he had looked in the mirror, and he had a gun to his head. And luckily, he said, I'm gonna try this consult tomorrow at this Game Day place. Maybe that's my last shot. And he did. He came through Game Day, and he's transformed, right? He's back to himself. So when I say Game Day saves life, I'm not saying it tongue in cheek. And you have countless examples of this as well. We really are, right? It's a transformative experience for men that gets them back into being who they want to be.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. It still gives me goosebumps every time I hear that story too. I think the strongest thing you can do is accept that there's an issue. But then nowadays, I'm also seeing a lot of guys who want to stay at the top of their performance before. And we talk about sexual performance when it starts to decline. If you catch it early, you can fix it early. So it's easier to fix when it's earlier. And I think we're seeing more and more of that. I wanted to pivot to myself and you a little bit. 2023, go back to almost 3 years ago when you and I first met. And I think you guys were looking for a medical director down in Florida. Mm-hmm. And I start looking you up, and I start looking up the other franchisees, and I'm like, wow, these guys are not who I thought they were. It's not just somebody who's got a couple of clinics. He's building a mission. And then looking up my business partners, I was like, I don't want to be a medical director. I want to be part of this. And we end up buying 10 locations. Back then, I'm a doctor. My wife is a doctor. We know plenty about health, right? But there's things about, I was 255 pounds before Game Day. Why do you think I gained so much weight? Why does weight gain happen like that? And if it can happen to me, how easy is it for something like that to happen to someone else?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would ask you, like, what was it? Sure, you had a super stressful career, and it's like a slow burn, right? All of a sudden, you're just looking the scale one day, and there it is. I mean, you fill me in. What was it?
Yeah, I think it was the chronic cortisol levels for sure, right? That competes with testosterone. So you're right, absolutely. A very stressful career that was deeply, at times, unsatisfying. And that's why I sort of credit you for giving me back that satisfaction in practicing medicine, where it's just me and my patient. That's another thing you and I talk about. That Monday that I see patients is absolutely essential, because I take that Monday and I can carry it into the rest of the week. And it's something very, very special to me. But I think not having that satisfaction, definitely the hormones with cortisol competing with testosterone, lifestyle creep will do that to you as well. The dinners, going out, emotional eating for sure, stressful eating for sure. I think all of that goes into account. And then burnout, right? You almost look at food like a reward system instead of how I look at food now more as just fuel. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's changed as well. You yourself though, you're kind of jacked. And your Instagram is full of you, looking jacked. As founder of Game Day, that's absolutely inspiring. Game day isn't about getting jacked though. What is it about? What is the
Yeah,
talk a little bit about that longevity piece?
totally. Yeah. I mean, for sure it isn't. I think that's a common misconception is testosterone replacement is just going to turn me into a bodybuilder, right? And that's not what we're about, honestly. I think for me, it's, I just like to work out. It helps, helps clear my mind, helps keep me focused and, strong.
Because you have a little bit of stress.
Tad, you know. But it's good. I signed up for it and like pressure is a privilege, fully subscribe to that. Game day really is about helping guys live with passion and purpose again. And I say those two words, passion and purpose, because they're really hard to measure, right? You're not going to go into the data and go, okay, he's got his passion back and he's got his purpose back. They're qualitative and they're a feeling state. And so this gets kind of like to my psychology background. The only way you can measure that is to ask the guy, right? How are you feeling? And are you back? And that's what we're about. And maybe it isn't, becoming this jacked person in the gym, which most guys don't when they start on a program. It's about, I just want to sleep better, or I want to have a little more energy at 4:00 on a Sunday to not have to just, take a huge energy drink and then a couple espresso shots to push through the end of the weekend. I just want to be better dad. Or, hey, I want to be more connected with my wife again, things that we become roommates and I don't want that. She doesn't want that. How do I get the passion back? So that's really what we're about. And it's a thing that, again, it's not measurable, but it comes across. You can kind of see the kind of sparkle come back, right? In guys' eyes who start on testosterone replacement or peptide therapy or anything that we offer. That's when I know we're winning. And that's when I know the mission is being carried out.
And you kind of have to walk the talk too. So you can't be, imagine the CEO of the largest men's performance clinic in the world wasn't jacked, it would kind of look off, right?
Perhaps.
I'm going to talk a little bit about our RZs now. Before you were a CEO, you were us, right? You were an operator. So when you see franchisees like us, right, we're grinding, we're losing sleep, we're starting to get a little bit tired. And you've talked about this on calls with us. What do you actually see? And now I want you to answer not as our CEO and founder.
Yeah.
I want you to answer as somebody who's lived it and continues to live it, because you still have 3 or 4 clinics of your own within the Game Day system, no? Or is
More.
it's like 6 now?
Yeah. Maybe like 10 now, I think. I believe I own.
Right.
Yeah. Look, yeah, I'll answer it very honestly. So if you don't go through a period of burnout as an entrepreneur, you're probably not working hard enough. And that's just a fact that we're all going to have periods of burnout. I think the key is to recognize it's not a final state. It passes. Since I started Game Day, there's probably been 6 different periods where I was like, this is really hard and I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And I was the pioneer, right? The beauty of the franchise system is that there's 350 people that we can call upon at any time and say, dude, talk me through this. Like, this month sucks. We're flat this month. Patients are a little pissy. I know I just lost a couple of my team. They wanted to, leave and do something different. It's really hard. Well, that's what business is. Business, and I say it all the time, is getting punched in the face every day and waking up and doing it again. And you're choosing that. So burnout is really, really real. And I think normalizing that as like, it's an acute period, right? It's like people call them a season in life, right? That's what it is. And rely on someone who's been through it. I have a lot of calls with franchisees all week long, and we talk about burnout a lot. A lot of our franchisees, the majority of the network, they're right around 2 years in operating, right? So the honeymoon period of the first 6 months is over, and now it's real, right? Now you got, employee issues. You got payroll to hit every 2 weeks. You're going to have overtime with some of these employees. You're going to deal with, patient didn't get his meds on time. Guess what? He's going to be mad at you for that, not the pharmacy. So there's nonstop, right? I say it all the time. Game Day is a simple business, but it's a hard business at the same time. The model is super simple. It's elegant. But operating it can take a lot out of you. And so it's a real thing. We support each other. All of us in the Game Day network, myself, I'm in the mix because I still own clinics. And you just get through it. You just push through.
Yeah. You talk a lot about doing the right thing. And that's something I repeat about you all the time, that you said, do the right thing by the patient and the success will follow. And it invariably, it has followed. Give me a specific decision that you made, and you'll probably know where I'm going with this, that you made while you were building Gameday, which was the right thing for patients and franchisees, but it cost the money, it cost the company money, and it slowed down growth. Not philosophy. I want to know,
Yeah.
something, a real
I
decision
mean,
that you
in the
made.
early days of the clinic, um, look, I'm not a clinician. You are, I'm not, right? And so the game day model is all built on the clinician's autonomy to start a patient on treatment or not. Um, you know, there's a lot of guys who are come to game day that don't need TRT. And that can be hard sometimes as a business owner where you go, wait, he wants our services, but he doesn't qualify. And so you know this more than I do. We say
Yeah.
no a lot more than we say yes at game day for starting people on treatment. It's just doing the right thing for the guy. An 18-year-old Marine walks in the door and his levels are 700. Dude, you know, we're not for you, right?
Right.
Come back in 10 or 15 years. That happens all day long. And so those types of like lost revenue opportunities, it's good clinical care. And then you're going to attract the right guys. And again, this is something you can't measure. It's more the spiritual component of game day. If you just do the right thing for every guy, more guys come in. The business has a better reputation. The brand has a solid reputation. I mean, we're the largest in North America for a reason, right? And we continue to grow every single month for a reason. And I think the key reason is because all of our franchisees operate with that mentality, which is just like, if I can help you feel good, I'm going to. If there's something here that, doesn't make sense, then we're not going to sell you on it. We're not a med spa trying to just pump testosterone or peptides, and you bark up, on the tree about this day and night with your medical director group. That's just who we are, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, my claim to fame in my friend group is that in the COVID days we invested in mobile home parks. So they joked that I took garbage and turned it into gold. And I was like, what's the next industry that we can turn around? And what was it? It was men's health that was just, like you said, filled with, the seedy operators, the shady med spas, no clinical oversight. And then you built this thing and you were like, you know what? I want a layer of medical oversight on this thing. And that's what we're doing here. We're turning it into gold as well. And I think we can say it with pride. When we're standing up with Cleveland Clinic and as invitees to their
Yeah.
events because we're such good partners with them, it's a mark of pride when we have urology groups that are saying, we love to send our patients to you because we know they're going to be taken care of the right way. We've got urology across the country on speed dial and big names. So that's something that I take a ton of pride in, that we've
Yep.
built those relationships. What do you think? What do you wish franchisees understood about how you actually think about them? And I don't want the polished, the conference version. I want the version that I get, that I'm lucky to get, even on the weekends when I'm harassing you on text message. I
Yeah.
want that version. What's the?
Yeah. I mean, we spend every waking hour I do trying to really find new ways to help franchisees win and become profitable and succeed and grow their clinics. I'm in the office, funny enough, right now, where every franchisee that came through our, we called confirmation days, where they were really wanting to own a game day. There was a final step in the process. They had a one-on-one with me and they got 10 minutes. And I'd always ask them the same two questions. Number one, like, why you? And then number two is like, how are you going to fund this thing? But the first question was the more important one. Why you? Why are you the right one for this? And the franchisees who talked about, the spreadsheets and the financials and, hey, this is a great industry because it's growing, rah, rah, rah. Those are the ones I was like, you're not for the brand. It was the ones who are like, I just love health. TRT changed my life. Or I just love being in healthcare. Or I own gyms and like, this is who I am. I'm a fitness guy or a fitness girl, right? Those are the ones I went thumbs up to. So I feel a personal responsibility for everyone's success, truly. And, when things don't go as well as I'd like, and look, in any business that happens, it impacts me, right? It certainly impacts me. And so, I mean, to the franchisees that we have, it's really, we're partners and letting them know that like, look, anybody can have a call with me whenever they want, and that's an open door policy. And same as you, we're like, look, anytime you want to talk about anything, what's going well, what's not, we're here. We're a massive system, but we're also very nimble still. And that's been like a huge kind of core tenet of how we operate is like, if it works, we work with it. If it doesn't, we throw it in the trash, we try something new. And so we day and night, right, trying to do that. And the beauty is the model works, right? And I think the franchisees who operate the playbook the right way, they all do really, really, really well, right?
Yeah.
And it's a franchise, right? And so you want consistency, trust, uniformity across services, across product offerings, because that's where the real value comes in, right? Do you want to own a McDonald's, or do you want to own Bob's Burger Stand? No,
Yeah.
you want McDonald's because there's
Yeah.
trust in that.
The cool thing is about having those 350 people, it's like having 350 cheerleaders, ambassadors across the country that are walking billboards. Because remember the last conference where I'm walking around, I'm like, man, I feel unfit around some of these guys because they're just perfect. You're like top to bottom, right? The women and the men, just all across the owners across the board. And that shows because you can, you have to build that. It's not something that comes easy. So when you see that in people, I'm like, these are driven alphas, and I just I'm proud to be part of that group.
It's crazy.
Part of that group.
Cities that I travel to, like I'll just be driving around town and there's another wrapped, Cybertruck with Gameday on it. It's we have hundreds and hundreds of wrapped trucks that franchisees own that they couldn't be more proud, right? Or the logo and build this thing, and every call I'm like, how are you liking it? Is this, you love it? They're like, I love it. I had a franchisee in Dallas say, are you kidding? I love this business. Like, in what other business can you be the business? And I love that. I love the way he said that, because you're a walking billboard and you're inspiring men in your community to like take charge of their life.
Yeah. You've seen the testosterone Jeep we have out front. So
I have had a few rides in it throughout this game.
Yeah. My wife she won't let me wrap her car, but we got that one at least. So in the industry, though, talking about the industry, men's health is exploded, right? It's become more and more mainstream. You've got all these telehealth brands out there, med spas, primary care groups. Talk a little bit about everybody wanting in, but what do you think we're doing right versus some of these folks that are getting it wrong?
Yeah. So, number one, we're about the patient experience. And with the rise of the telehealth platforms and the rise of, fast ordered meds, that's our differentiator, right? I mean, the services we offer, it's serious business, right? Testosterone replacement, peptide therapy, sexual performance, they need to be monitored by licensed clinicians, not through a Webflow questionnaire. And that's just how I know you feel the same way, right? That's not true healthcare. So we stand on that, and we're premium for a reason, right? Not everybody's going to want to come to Gameday because they're just going to want to go to the bottom of the barrel pricing that they find through ChatGPT of what's cheapest testosterone near me online, right? That's not us. That'll never be us. And I think that's why guys are so proud to wear the Gameday logo. Patients I'm talking about is because they're part of a community, right? Of guys that know that we have their back. Our clinicians don't just manage their labs. They manage their lives, right? They know more about them oftentimes than their significant other. They become almost like quasi-therapists. So that you can't replace that, right? Telehealth companies can never touch that. I think that's why we've continued to grow in the face of all the new competition. We have always say, you and I, like, if you focus on your patient and keep delighting them, you have no competition. So anytime, that word comes up for me, it's like, we just focus on the guy who walks in the door, and that's how we keep winning.
Yeah. And actually, we're getting a form of group therapy in the lobbies. If you just hang out in your lobby, it's pretty awesome to see as well.
Yeah.
You're launching Herway, the women's health brand, under Gameday Health, and you spent years understanding what men need. What gave you the conviction to build something for women, and how's your role different this time in that?
Yeah. So Herway's been in the making for quite a few years now. It's a project that we always wanted to develop, because I think you said it earlier, you get the wives that come in for their appointments with their husband and they go, he's a new guy, but I still feel like crap. What about me? Do you have anything for me? And it was always like, no, we've been very disciplined at Gameday in terms of, we only treat men and we only offer a very narrow menu of services, because simplicity is super key for guys and for our model. And so we've always been like, well, there's an opportunity for women. You can't just cookie cutter the Gameday approach onto women. Whole different kind of issue of complexity with women's health. But we've decided now, come late this summer, that we'll launch Herway Health and Hormones. There's a few offices in SoCal that have proven out the model, and we'll offer that up to the country later this year. But very similar services, very narrow menu: women's hormone health, peptides, weight loss, sexual health, some light aesthetics. Women want that more than the men. In terms of my role there, I really, truly, firmly believe that a women's health brand needs to have women in front
Yeah.
facing. So the executive team at Herway is mostly all women. I'll function more as in a kind of a chairman role at Herway. We'll have CEO, president, COO, clinical folks who are women that understand women. I think that's why Gameday resonated so well with men, is because it was me kind of leading it as the dude who we all go through these issues, and so I was relatable. I think the same approach happens with Herway, so that's how to look.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I'm stoked and excited to see what happens there. They are a little bit more complicated than we are, though. So
Yeah, careful.
yeah. Exactly. And I mean, my wife is a physician, so I see it day to day, right? No, I thank you so much for being on, and let's go ahead and book episode 100 right now. We can talk about how Gameday has grown. I think we're at 1 million men tested so far for
Yep.
prostate cancer, and it's going to be hopefully triple that by the time episode 100 comes out. You can follow Evan at Evan Miller _GD. You can follow Gameday at Gameday _Men's Health. Follow me at Health with Dr. Hal or Dr. Hal _Gameday. And the show is going to be DocPod Health. If you have guest ideas, slide into my DMs. And remember, health, it's everything.